Raider! Oakland, LA, Oakland, Vegas, Raider Nation, wherever, forever! You got your old Uncle Mosh and Raiders Fan Radio from Murph's Fan Cave, taking a lighter journey into the dark side. Sit back, put your feet up, pop a top, and enjoy the ride. Here we go!
Look left, look right, Kolesnikov, a leaping pass, touchdown!
We miss you, we love you, and we'll see you in the Hall of Fame.
When you have great coaches, then after you have great coaches, you get great players. You have a great organization, and you tell them one thing: just win, baby.
Way up the middle, intercepted Filipiano at the 50, time running down, Oakland football, and I think Oakland victory.
The Oakland Raiders have scored on the most zany, unbelievable, absolutely impossible dream of a play. Well, I love this team. I think this team can win.
What is up, Raider Nation? Your old buddy Murph back once again for another what we hope to be fantastic episode of Raiders Fan Radio. That's right. It is Sunday. It is Super Bowl Sunday, and this is the RFR Super Game Bowl Spectacular. I'm not sure. Super Spectacular with your buddies Murph and Uncle Mosh. And so today we're going to do something fun. We're going to do something unique. We're not going to do a typical episode of Raiders Fan Radio. All we're going to do is talk about the past glory of the silver and black on this Super Sunday and relive some of the greatest moments in Raiders Super Bowl history. So thank you very much. I'm looking into the camera, Uncle Mosh. Thank you very much for joining us here on Raiders Fan Radio. Thanks for joining me and that disembodied voice that dons the southern annex of the Murph's Fan Cave desk. Welcome, Uncle Mosh.
Hey! I'm so glad to be here. You know what? I'm a little off my game because I'm looking up. I'm so excited today.
Yeah, you are.
Today is the number 2 day for food consumption other than Thanksgiving in the United States. And the stuff that's out there, it's like Americans eat more than 1 billion chicken wings on Super Bowl weekend.
Oh my gosh, no kidding.
Yeah, there was a stat on channel on CBS this morning, and they were talking about the amount of guacamole consumed would cover from goalpost to goalpost a football field like 3 foot thick or something like that. And I'm like,
no kidding.
I could eat my way from the 10-yard line all the way. They were the amount of chips would stretch from San Francisco to New York and back like 5 times. Your son and I were on the way home from church this morning where I was reading the stats to him about all that, and we were salivating. So
wow.
we had to take a left turn and go get donuts. It was great.
Yeah, you did.
Yeah.
You almost didn't make it over this morning because you did take a donut detour, and you and my almost 16-year-old son, you had him driving.
Well, I have a driver now.
Yeah, so you were being chauffeured while you were consuming mass quantities of donuts.
Oh, yeah. I need to post one of those. There's a picture of me consuming donuts and him driving, and then later on I was teaching him the fine art of driving because he says your wife, God rest her soul, God bless her soul. She
golly,
I know, right? She rides with the kid.
Well, taking out Mrs. Murph early on Super Bowl Sunday. Yeah,
no, but she makes him. They make each other so nervous when he drives, you know. And I go, what do you mean? What do you mean? Why does she make you nervous? And he goes, every time I put on the brake, her feet are on the dashboard. And I'm like,
yeah.
He's a good driver, man. Of course, I didn't know. I didn't look up from the plate of donuts I had at the time. But he got us home safe.
Yeah,
but I taught him the art of eating a donut and waving at the camera while driving with his knees.
There you go. Now all you got to do is teach him how to moon and drive at the same time, and the circle will be complete.
Absolutely.
That's right.
Absolutely.
I think I might have been 14 when you taught me that.
I did.
Yeah.
I did.
Yeah,
yes.
yeah.
And it's the way it goes.
It's a life skill. It's a family skill. All right. So thanks for joining us here on Raiders Fan Radio Live. I don't even remember what we called this thing. I'll say it once again. Super Bowl.
I got it written down.
You got it written down?
The Raiders Fan Radio Super Sunday Super Bowl Super Show with your favorite two stupids.
There you go. So I appreciate you all joining us. Thanks to everybody that's in the chat, man. A whole bunch. Haley in there, Mojo Raider, Bobby Wasabi, Raider Critique, Raider Roo, Raiders Voice, Sean Grogan, Kevin the Raider Nerd. Let's see who else in there. Alexander Stockton, a whole bunch of you. Dave Cooper, thank you so much for joining us on this episode of Raiders Fan Radio. So listen, this is what we're going to do today. We're Raiders fans. We will rep the Raiders every day, all day.
All day.
It doesn't matter who's playing in the game. We only represent one team. We represent the Raiders. And so that's what we're going to do. We're going to go through and we're going to talk about the Raiders in the Super Bowl. And this is going to be what they call evergreen content, Mosh. This is going to be good for now till the end of whenever, till the Raiders win or at least appear in another Super Bowl. Our goal is to not only have fun and just relive all the past glory of the Raiders, but to give you guys some cool information, some cool tidbits. So when you're hanging out with your friends and family and you're watching the game tonight and everyone's griping about the Patriots, you can instead be armed with some really cool Raiders stuff and keep the conversation flowing in the right direction, which is towards the Raiders.
You know, it's so funny because back in the old days when you and my other favorite nephew, when Sonny started this show, you guys used to start your conversations by saying, "What are we drinking today?" Of course, you guys were, you were separated by the entire nation. He was on the West Coast, and you're out here in the Southeast. And so I think it's apropos that instead of talking about what we're drinking, because you and I are both drinking coffee, we talk about what we're wearing.
Yeah.
So I'll describe what you got on. So
you've
got on your Kenny Stabler jersey, an absolute wore-out number 12, faded. It's awesome, and your favorite Raider hat. It's the same outfit you were wearing when you posed for your little doll, your Mini Murph, your action.
That's
figure.
an action figure, Mike.
Yeah. And that hat that has like this great sweat line, just broke in, that favorite kind of hat. And shorts, because we live in an area where last Wednesday, just like 4 days ago, whatever it was, 4, 6, it's all the same. It was minus 150 degrees. We were freezing.
Yeah.
We had to open up the refrigerator to get some heat in this room. And now it's almost 70 degrees outside.
Now it's almost 70 degrees. Yeah. It's crazy.
So,
I was on the Behind the iPad show this last week, and they asked what the weather was going to be like in Nashville, and he said, "Is it going to be freezing cold? Are we going to be drinking coffee and hot chocolate, or is it going to be nice and warm outside?" And I said, yes. Yeah. All that.
Oh, yeah.
It's Tennessee has all 4 seasons, and sometimes we get them all in a week. Well, let me describe you then, Uncle Mosh. You got your Atlanta Raiders Booster Club shirt on,
Absolutely.
kindly sent to you by Kevin the Raider Nerd, which is awesome. Then you've got your Carhartt Raider hat, which was sent to us by the Carhartt folks, which is really cool. And you've adorned it with your silver and black UK pin. And so that's kind of how we roll, man. And this is what we do every certainly on Sundays for sure. This is how we dress, man. It's just repping the Raiders all the time around here, as I know many of you are as well. All right. So thank you again for joining us. You can always find our show, Murph's Fan Cave. Just search any podcast service and find Murph's Fan Cave. You can, if you are an Apple user, use the Apple app. If you're an Android user, search in the Google Play Store and download our app for Raiders Fan Radio. And then if you're a YouTube fan, go to youtube.com/Murph's Fan Cave, and you can find us that way and subscribe to us, please. And so thank you to all those of you that already do.
And they could join the chat. You don't have to be anything special. Get in there. I mean, we're talking about food right now. Yeah. Which and we're talking about they're talking about the game, and they're talking about everybody's talking about what they're eating. I mean, it's a great time. It's the community. It's kind
of favorite part now of the show.
Oh yeah, the chat. It's amazing. Yeah. It's amazing. So there it is.
All
let's
right.
go.
Let's go. So let's hit. All right. So let's just go ahead and dive into it. We've got a lot of content. Frankly, we have more content about the Raiders in the Super Bowl than we're going to be able to get to in this show. So we're going to get to as much of it as we possibly can. I'm sure we'll tag more of this stuff as we go along. But the gist of it is this, is that we're going to go through and talk about the Raiders and their history in the big game. So The Raiders have played in the Super Bowl 5 times. Okay, now we have won 3 and we have lost 2. We're going to focus mainly on the 3 wins. Like, we're fans of the trilogy, whether it be Lord of the Rings or Star Wars or whatever. Like, there's a lot of trilogies, The Godfather, to be fans of, and I'm a fan of the Raiders Super Bowl trilogy. So we're going to focus on those 3 games, but we definitely want to acknowledge the fact that they played in 2 more prior to that. So while we're not going to focus on the losses, we're going to at least acknowledge them that they happened. And in fact, Uncle Mosh has old Coach Gruden over his shoulder, who was responsible for one of those losses. But Uncle Mosh, you want to tell us about the first one? Tell us about the first Super Bowl that the Raiders ever played in.
Here's the problem with you and young people.
What?
Young people is people.
Thank you for calling me young people, by the way. I'll own that.
It's people younger than me, which is most. And you want to talk about Super Bowl number 2, the Green Bay Packers.
Yeah.
And they were 9-4-1, and we were 13-1.
Yes.
Okay.
We were the AFL champions that year.
AFL champions.
Destroyed the Houston Oilers on our way to that second Super Bowl.
We got cheated in the Super Bowl.
How did we get cheated?
We got cheated. They cheated us. You people don't remember those films. That's like the second Zapruder film. That stuff has been locked away for, I think it's another 19 years.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay.
So we was robbed.
So we was robbed.
Okay.
We was robbed
All
on
right.
that one. So we can just that John Rock. It should have been, instead of the Lombardi Trophy, it should have been
the John Rock Trophy.
It should have been the John Rock Trophy.
All right, fair enough.
We got cheated.
All right, so we got cheated. So let's go.
So you know what I'm doing? So look, let me show you.
Okay, hold on. Yeah,
Get to me.
I got to you.
Here's the stats on that Super Bowl.
All right, so that one doesn't count.
It doesn't count.
All right, the other one that doesn't count is Coach Gruden is over your shoulder. Now, we love Coach Gruden right now. Okay, we love Coach Gruden today, and we loved him in the early 2000s. But back when this happened, we didn't love Coach Gruden so much. We're going to reference a little bit when we get to the records. We're going to represent a little bit Super Bowl 37, but for the most part, again, it's not part of the winning trilogy, so this is what we do with it. All right, there we go.
Done.
Done. All
there
right.
you go. That's all that needs to be said.
That's all that needs to be said about those 2 Super Bowls. All right, so let's focus on now the overall picture. So here's the big picture: the Raiders in the Super Bowl. So when you look at the standings, so this is where do the Raiders fit into the lexicon of the NFL and the teams that have competed in the Super Bowl? Well, first and foremost, there's 4 teams that have never played in a Super Bowl. That is the Cleveland Browns, the Detroit Lions, the Jaguars, and the Houston Texans. And this is interesting to me, Mosh, because you have 2 classic NFL teams.
Absolutely.
Two of the original NFL teams, and then 2 of the newest NFL teams in the Texans and Jaguars. So those 4 teams have never been in the Super Bowl. So when we look at the standings, so if you were to picture Super Bowl appearances and you were to rank them just like you would a division, just like you would look at how teams stack up against one another in a division. What is the standings? Well, the standings tell us that the Pittsburgh Steelers are number 1 with a record of 6-2 in the Super Bowl and a winning percentage of .750. Okay, so they've won now more Super Bowls than anybody else. Now the Patriots can tie them today, but as of right now, it's the Steelers. The Niners have won 5, and so has also the Cowboys, and then, as I mentioned, the Patriots. So those are the next 3 teams in the standings. Then with 4 wins apiece are the Packers and the Giants. Both of those teams have an .800 winning percentage because they are 4-1 in the game. And then guess what? Guess who's at number 7, Mosh?
It's a no-brainer. Our beloved Oakland Raiders.
Our beloved Oakland Raiders.
3-2.
3-2 in the game. So your winning quarterbacks are Kenny Stabler, of course, and then 2 times Jim Plunkett. Gannon lost the last one in 37, and then LaMonica lost that one that we was robbed in back in 67. But very interesting there, Raider Nation, is that I want you to consider this today when you're watching the game. And what is that, Mosh?
Here's the problem with today's game. Today's game has no significance whatsoever.
In terms of what? Of us, right?
In terms of the real football fans, Raider Nation.
Right.
Because if New England wins another one. Okay, they bump up ahead of San Francisco. They bump up ahead of Dallas, and they're right up there with Pittsburgh with 6 wins. Okay, if the Rams win, they go up to having played in 4 games. They're 2-2. They're 500, and guess what? They're right up there with Indianapolis, who we don't care about either.
Right.
And they're still not even in the top 10. We are in the top 10. They are in the bottom 2/3. So this game has no significance on us. There's one team ahead of us that can change places. We're still going to be number 7. And there's one team behind us, regardless of the outcome, that's still going to be in the bottom 2/3. This game has no significance. This game doesn't matter.
Sure, Mohawk has beaten us 12 years in a row. Sure, they're terrific athletes, but it doesn't matter. Do you know that they use the most sophisticated training methods from the Soviet Union, East and West Germany, and the newest Olympic power, Trinidad and Tobago? But it doesn't matter. It just doesn't matter. It just doesn't matter. I tell you, it just doesn't matter. 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 It just doesn't.
It just doesn't matter, Mosh.
Today's game just doesn't matter.
It just doesn't matter. So look, I understand why people hate the Patriots. I get it. But I also understand why people hate the Rams, and you could put me in that camp too.
Yeah.
And I like the idea that the Raiders are the only team that have a Super Bowl victory in the city of Los Angeles. So there are multiple reasons to hate on either one of these teams. And so because of the fact that neither one of the positions, or as far as where they're going to end up, it doesn't impact the Raiders. Root for whoever you want. I guess this is our way of just telling you that, look, you can get caught up in one thing or another, and whatever that is that you get caught up in, that's fine. But, you know, we've heard from some people that, well, I don't want the Patriots to win so many that we can't catch them. Well, it doesn't matter if there you go. It just doesn't matter because we got to catch the Steelers still, too. The Steelers already have 6, so it doesn't matter if the Patriots get 6 because we're still going to be 3 behind of who it is, regardless of what it is. And if it's the Rams, and again, we want to be the only team that represents Southern California and Los Angeles with a Super Bowl trophy. So, look, don't get too caught up in when you hear those discussions today. Look, ultimately, in the way that it impacts the Raiders, none of it matters, man.
No.
None of it.
You know what's
freaking
cool?
Matters.
I love that Oakland Raiders won the Super Bowl in Oakland. Then a few years later, they win the Super Bowl in L.A. You know, they're the true West Coast team. Okay, and here's something that I just realized this morning when we were doing show prep. Do you know, Murph, 60% of the players that started on that team that won in Los Angeles also started in Oakland?
In Oakland. Yeah.
60%.
That's crazy.
And how many years difference was that? What, 4?
Yeah, 4 years, yeah.
4 years. That's talk about retention. And
what was the actual date? Let's see. Let me make sure we got it right because we got
1984.
Yeah, 81 to 84, so 3 years.
81 to 84. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
Yeah. Now listen, and here's something else, Raider Nation, too. Interesting point there, Mosh, and thank you for that. He's right that these players were the Oakland Raiders that then transferred over to Los Angeles. But something when we talk in terms of years. So, because you'll hear us kind of go back and forth. We'll talk about 84. We'll talk about 81. We'll talk about even 77. And you're like, well, wait a minute. The 76, 80, and 83 are the years. Yes, but the Super Bowl is always played in that month or two afterwards. So when we look at the 83 Raiders as winning their championship, but they won it on January 22nd, 1984. So
sure.
So Mosh is right. So 3 years difference between those teams. So essentially, it was a 4-year difference and a 3-year difference between the three,
yep.
between the trilogy when they came out, which oddly enough almost coincides with Star Wars, Empire Strikes Back, and Return of the Jedi, which is very interesting.
Yeah, that's crazy. But I love that when you look back, it was so even on those last 2 teams that 60% of the offensive players and 60% of the defensive players.
That is so cool.
That is so cool.
That is
6
so
of
cool.
the 11. I'm rounding up to 60%. 6 of the 11 starters, you know?
And there's a bunch of those guys that were probably even still from 7. I know for sure the guys on the line, Shell and Upshaw, right, were still there from 76 from that season up through to 83.
Well, but Shell didn't play in 84.
Oh, he did.
I just compared. I went with the two teams that had the most.
Oh, okay.
And that was the.
Well, I wonder. What I'm saying is how many went from all three.
Oh, yeah.
How many were in all three?
It's so much smaller. It's like Cliff Branch.
Right.
Shell wasn't.
Shell wasn't. Upshaw was though, right?
Upshaw wasn't either. He didn't start. Now he might have been there. But
but he didn't. You're talking about starters. Oh, I got you.
I'm talking about starters. Yeah. So
cool. That's cool, Mosh.
But it's cool. It's cool.
So 60% of the so that's an even more significant
that's
figure.
That's what I'm saying.
60% of the starters
that started in both of those Super Bowl games.
Wow, that's cool.
Yeah, 60% on offense and 60% on defense.
See, that's the kind of stuff. Now take that to a freaking Super Bowl party and don't tell your Raider friends that. That's good stuff. That's stuff that people aren't talking about. All right, so one last thing in terms of the current kind of spectrum of the game. Here's something fun, Raider Nation. Check this out. Since 2001, since we got robbed, we really did get robbed in the Tuck rule, and Tom Brady went and appeared at and won his first Super Bowl. When you look at the teams and the quarterbacks that have played in the Super Bowl since 2001, since that game until now, listen to this list. Brady, Gannon, our guy. Brady, Roethlisberger, Manning, Brady, Roethlisberger, Manning, Roethlisberger, Brady, Flacco, Manning, Brady, Brady. So let me do that for you one more time. Brady, Gannon, Brady, Roethlisberger, Manning, Brady, Roethlisberger, Manning, Roethlisberger, Brady, Flacco, Manning, Brady, Brady. Did you hear one of these things is not like the other? Rich Gannon, who it feels like retired 150 years ago, is still one of the few quarterbacks that has represented the AFC in the Super Bowl besides friggin' Tom Brady, Ben Roethlisberger, Peyton Manning, and then there's two. So Flacco has had his, and then Rich Gannon, man. So pretty interesting there. So despite and this is the thing. And this is what gets me, and you could tell this to anybody that wants to give you crap about being a Raider fan. You know, so Chiefs fan, Charger fan, Bronco fan, whoever. We've given you an awful lot of time to catch up to us. We've been bad for a long time, and your teams still can't match what our teams do. Or what our team has done. So anytime anybody wants to give you any crap about being a Raider fan and they say, oh, the Raiders suck. Yeah, based on what? Tell me why my team sucks when your team still can't do what my team has done. And my team's only been good a couple of times since 1983. Oh, drives me nuts, Mosh. People have no idea what they're talking about. The Raiders are still as relevant as ever in this discussion. And this is why we wanted to do this show today. All right, so let's talk a little bit about some of the Raiders' records in the Super Bowl. In terms of individual records, Mosh, there's a lot of them. But they're mostly all populated by one guy's name. All right. I know. And we barely even acknowledge the fact that he was a Raider. And I'm talking about Jerry Rice. So when you look at the individual records in the Super Bowl, so most points scored, most touchdowns, most receiving touchdowns for two different teams, most receptions, most receiving yards, most yards gained. The answer to all those questions are Jerry Rice. Now, he wore silver and black when he did some of that, but we all know the majority of that came when he was a Niner. So we don't really claim those records, but just know that Jerry Rice represents pretty much every significant receiving record in terms of the Super Bowl. And he did part of that when he wore the silver and black. All right. So, but here's some that we will fully embrace and we will fully own. So lowest percentage, Mosh, of passes intercepted with a minimum of 40 attempts. There's only two guys on the list. You want to tell them who they are?
Yep. Jim Plunkett and that other guy that played across the bay, and we don't need to go into great detail. He's named after a state. But, let's talk about Plunkett, though. 46-0.
46-0. So that means 46 attempts and 0 interceptions in 2 games. Yeah. Pretty strong. Pretty
strong, man.
Yeah, so to be on there on the list with Joe Montana, that's great. That's pretty awesome. So in terms of kind of a negative passing record, our boy Rich Gannon, he threw the 5 picks in Super Bowl 37.
Yeah, that doesn't count, though.
Well, it doesn't. We're not going to.
We don't talk about that.
And there's a lot of records that we're not going to cover because they're all negative, and they are. I'll acknowledge them. We're not going to pretend they don't exist. They're there, but I don't want to talk about them on our show because I don't like to talk about them. So those 5 picks that Gannon threw, there are a lot of other records around that, in terms of defense that are in favor of the Buccaneers. So we're going to leave that alone, but just know that
right.
It's there and they exist. All right. So back to some good ones. Highest average yards per game, Mosh, with a minimum of 20 attempts. This guy averaged 9.6 yards a carry
in a Super Bowl.
Who's that?
Marcus Allen.
Absolutely.
Jeez, Pete.
Yeah, Marcus Allen running with the night, and of course he had that 74-yard gallop, which we're going to play for you here in just a little bit. But that's where a lot of those yards came from. But still, to average that much in a game is insane. Here's a fun one, and this might be my favorite Raiders individual record of them all.
Yeah,
most interceptions in a career in the Super Bowl is Rod Martin of linebacker for the Raiders in 2 games. In the 2 games that he played, Super Bowl 15 and Super Bowl 17. But the kicker to that is that all 3 of those came in 1 game, Mosh, didn't they?
Yep. That's nuts.
That's nuts. They all came against the Philadelphia Eagles and Ron Jaworski in Super Bowl 15. Again, we're going to have some audio coming up for you of that. But Rod Martin, one of your all-time favorite guys.
Who started both those games I was telling you about. Yeah.
Oh, there you go. There's there's one of the guys there. Okay, perfect. And so pretty cool there. Most kickoff returns, most fair catches. We own those records, but that's because Tampa scored a whole bunch.
Because we got cheated.
Yeah, exactly. So here's some team records for the Raiders. So, and again, these are all modern day records. This is up until today. These are active current records that the Raiders still hold. Most points in the first quarter, which was 14, has been done by 7 teams. The Raiders are one of them. We scored 14 against the Philadelphia Eagles in Super Bowl 15. And then the largest lead at the end of the first quarter was also 14, and there's 3 teams that have done that. 3 teams that have done that, and we are one of those. The other 2 are Miami and Green Bay, but we are one with the 14-0 lead that we had at the end of the first quarter versus the Eagles. Fewest turnovers in a Super Bowl. 2 teams have had 0 turnovers in a Super Bowl. Mosh, who are they?
That's us and that team across the bay.
That's it. It's us and the Niners, man.
Yeah.
So pretty cool, man. So
we did it 2 times.
No, we did it 2 times.
We did it 2 times.
We did it 2 times. We didn't turn the ball over. Exactly.
Because there's 20 teams that have not had turnovers, but we did it twice.
We did it twice. Absolutely. Scoring in the second half, most points in the second half, us and the Buccaneers. They had 28. We had 18. Most field goals in a game. This is the only record left from Super Bowl II that we are a part of. Yep. Most field goals in a game was 4. And so that is us and of course the Green Bay Packers. Fewest rushing touchdowns in a game. That is us. We didn't have any, which is 0 in Super Bowl 15. Fewest times sacked. Very interesting. Only 1 sack in Super Bowl 15.
Wow.
And just 4 other teams with that. All right. Last one I'm going to touch on, and we know and understand there is a much bigger conversation as part of this record. So the last record we're going to talk about is the coaching record. And coming on the heels of Tom Flores and his denied the entry into the Pro Football Hall of Fame, Mosh and I are going to talk a lot about that on the regular episode of Raiders Fan Radio coming up this Wednesday. So we'll address all that, and it's been a hot topic on our show already, so we'll address it fairly then. But for right now, in terms of the Super Bowl, here's one of the things that carried Tom Flores' weight to being considered as a finalist, and that is the fact that there are only 4 coaches or 4 people that have coached the Super Bowl and won and played in the Super Bowl and that is Tom Flores and Mike Ditka, Tony Dungy, and Doug Peterson as most recently as last year. So only 4 guys in the history of the league have ever won, and then as a player, and then as a coach in the Super Bowl there, Mosh. So unfortunately, Flores won his with the Chiefs when he was part of the Chiefs as a player in Super Bowl 4. So it wasn't with the Raiders. So there's another tidbit for you, Raider Nation, is that even though he is one of the guys to do it, he didn't win it as a Raider and then win it as a Raider coach. He won it as a Chief as a player, and then won the Super Bowl, of course, twice as the Raiders coach. All right, so good stuff there. So All right, Mosh, let's hit the. You want to hit the chat one time? You want to acknowledge some of the people in the chat? Give me a.
So let's give you an update. So Carl Rogers is in there, Raiders voice, Joseph Morales, Ron of course is in there, Alex Rodriguez. My gosh, Q Dog was in there. I saw that. D-Man 707 702. Herman Munster's there with us. We got a bunch of folks in there talking about the chat's going a lot about where we're going to play, when they're going to make the announcement. Of course, we talked about that last week. Probably coming up, but we're speculating. We're hoping it's going to be Wednesday before we go on the air. But it's hard to say. You never really know.
Absolutely.
You never really know.
Absolutely. Good stuff there, Mosh, and appreciate everybody joining us in the chat as always. And you can always find us on youtube.com/Murph's Fan Cave if you want to be a part of that. An awesome community of Raiders fans there. All right, Mosh, so the quick tail of the tape. As we know, the Raiders won 3 and lost 2. So of the 3 that we won, Super Bowl number 11.
January 9th, 1977.
1977, your MVP was Fred Biletnikoff.
Sticky Fred, back in the day.
Sticky Fred.
Back in the day.
Back in the day. And we have a lot of audio to get to on this game, kind of detailing the importance, the significance of this for the Raiders. The Raiders had, this year they were, I want to say they were 13-1 that year. And they beat the Patriots in the divisional round and then finally got past the Steelers, which was, we were in the AFC Championship game like 5 years straight, and then finally got over that hump of beating the Steelers, and then on one, of course, to beat the Vikings in the game, 32-14. But let's go ahead and start off. Let's hear from Harry Callis, and this comes from the NFL 76 yearbook, and this is basically him kind of giving you a rundown of what it was like for the Raiders from the time they beat the Steelers in the AFC Championship up through the victory against Minnesota. I have that. I just played it. Oh, it's because I have it turned all the way down. So let's turn it up.
Now would be decided in a gargantuan struggle taking shape in Oakland, California. But the long-awaited rematch was a lopsided affair. Oakland took an early lead, and with Franco Harris sidelined by injury, Terry Bradshaw was forced to play catch-up against unbeatable odds. After 9 years of disappointment, this time Oakland won the AFC title going away. On to Pasadena and Super Bowl 11. The Minnesota Vikings gave it their best shot, but with New England and Pittsburgh behind them, the Raiders were home free. Oakland dominated all facets of play, giving NFL 76 a Super Bowl masterpiece that was 9 long years in the making. And so, where 28 teams had set out in pursuit of Super Bowl silver, only one had returned with the prize. In 1977, the rest will challenge Oakland's reign. But NFL 76 belonged to the Raiders.
All right, Mosh, NFL 76 belongs to the Oakland Raiders. And, there was a lot of build up to this game. As I mentioned, they were started to become the team that couldn't win the big one. And obviously that did not sit well with Madden. That did not sit well with the players. And they knew that they had to take control of their destiny and what their legacy was going to be in the NFL. And they knew they had to get past the stinking Steelers to do it. And so let's hear a little bit from the guys. So you're going to hear in all these clips, just know you already know the names, I hope. It's Stabler, it's Casper, it's George Atkinson, it's Phil Villapure, piano. It's John Madden. It's you're going to hear Tatum in a little bit. You're just going to hear all those guys. So you know who the Raiders of the 70s are, and so hopefully those voices are familiar to you.
We went to 5 consecutive AFC championship games, and we were starting to wear a tag of a very good football team that couldn't win the big one.
Maybe we weren't in every Super Bowl, maybe we didn't win every championship game, but we were always there.
So the camaraderie that day was special because we had been in so many playoffs and championships together and played so many games together. This was the one that we really wanted.
And it was a huge relief, a feeling of accomplishment, self-satisfaction. You get that monkey off your back for not being able to win the big one, and you get to go and play in the biggest game of your life.
We were hungry for a Super Bowl win. We were not just satisfied with getting there. Our whole objective was to win the Super Bowl.
We were very confident that today was going to be our day.
It was the closest to being overconfident that I ever was in my life. I said, we're going to kill these guys. I remember Tom Floyd said, no, don't say that.
John was right. We thought we could win, and we did win. But they weren't easy.
It was just that, what we could do and what we did, I didn't see how they were going to stop us.
All right, pretty cool there. So, you don't hear Madden talk brashly like that about that level of confidence. And so they knew, they were going to win this game going in. It was like, the Super Bowl was the Raiders Steelers.
Yes.
And I don't want to diminish the Vikings, and Al was kind of gracious there, but they knew that if they could take out the Steelers, one of the greatest teams of all time,
right,
the freaking Vikings weren't going to pose as much of a threat. Do you remember? You were 14?
Yeah, absolutely.
Do you remember this game?
And I remember because that was the beginning of the end between me and your father. Dad, your dad,
he bet on the Steelers a few times.
He liked Pittsburgh.
You hear me talk about the Raiders, about my uncles being Raider influences on me. You'll hear me talk about my dad doing too much.
I mean, your dad loved the Raiders. He went to games with you and everything else. He really liked Pittsburgh, man, and it was because he was a pragmatic guy. He was like, man, he'd look at it and he where all of us were betting with our hearts. He's like, well,
that's why.
But that was the kind of guy that he was.
And that was the thing is that my dad, I don't want to get a total tangent here, but my dad would bet a lot.
Right.
And he would bet, and that's why, because he would bet the Steelers to win. That's where that came from.
Sure.
You know what I mean? Is that you're right. He would do it there was a monetary motivation there.
Exactly.
It wasn't a fan.
No.
Yeah.
So, yeah, but that's fun. Yeah, I remember it. I remember it a lot. Now, again, this was way before jerseys. The only person to ever have a jersey in all of us that got together every single Sunday was your Uncle Murph, his brother. Your dad's little brother.
Yeah. My dad's
the only one that had a Raiders jersey.
Yeah, my dad's little brother, my Uncle Murph, the guy that I pulled the name from, and Mosh said, you need to be Murph. I'm like, yeah, but there's already an Uncle Murph. And
but he's dead.
Yeah. But he was the biggest Raider fan in the world. You need to honor him by having him be your name.
Sure.
So that's why my name is Murph. But anyways, so, all right, so cool stuff there. So let's listen to, the Raiders go and they march into Pasadena, and let's go to the legendary. You're going to hear a lot of legendary during this show, and none better than the Raiders' longtime announcer, also announcer for the A's and the Warriors, and that is the Hall of Famer, Bill King.
From the Rose Bowl Stadium in Pasadena, California, it is Super Bowl 11. This is Bill King with a welcome. Everything in the United States, everything really in a sports sense in the world, is zeroed in, focused today here in the canyon at Arroyo Seco. This 11th Super Bowl will be viewed in 41 nations around the world.
All right, so there's Bill King, and Bill King is only second, and well, maybe not even second. I don't know. It's like 1 and 1A for all-time greatest voiceovers, and of course, the second one on that list is the legendary announcer for NFL films, and that is John Facenda. And let's hear him intro Super Bowl 11.
Super Bowl 11 offered a classic conflict. Pro football's two most successful teams in a final struggle for the most treasured victory in the game. Neither the Raiders nor the Vikings had ever won a Super Bowl. But over the last 10 years, they have been the most consistent winners in the National Football League. The Raiders, a team built by Al Davis and coached by John Madden, have won divisional titles in 9 of the last 10 years. The Vikings, coached by Bud Grant, have played in more Super Bowls than any team in history.
So, here's what my takeaway from that. Not a big cough, but my takeaway from that is I think the Super Bowl for us this year. Now, since you've been here since 98, since you've been in Tennessee with me since 98, this might be the first Super Bowl we're planning on not watching together.
Yeah, I've watched more Super Bowls with you than I have anybody else in my whole life.
And we're like, oh yeah, we're gonna celebrate the Super Bowl by getting together and do a radio show.
This is our Super Bowl celebration right now.
This is our Super Bowl, yeah. And we're gonna we'll be texting each other or whatever later on. But it's like, man, he was talking about, in 41 countries they're gonna be, the biggest blah 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 blah. I'm not getting the hype. I don't know if it's a culture shift, but I don't remember it being this way last year. Even though we didn't have a dog in the hunt last year, we still got a little bit hyped about the Super Bowl. I'm not seeing it. I'm not seeing the hype the way it could be. Maybe it's because it's the same old stuff with Brady. Maybe because the way that New Orleans got put out, people are pissed. Maybe there's, I don't know. I just don't see Super Bowl Sunday as being the hype the way that it used to be, and I think it might be because of the two teams that are in.
Interesting, absolutely, yeah. So, well, I don't know. I've been so wrapped up in all this Raiders stuff, man. I've been knee deep,
and maybe it's just you and I have blinders on. Maybe
we
got the silver and black blinders on, and that's why.
Absolutely, I've been, we've been putting this show together for quite a while, and just being knee deep in all the Raiders stuff. I watched every stinking video and DVD I could get my hands on to try to come up with the content for this, and so I'm kind of. I've paid attention to some of it, but other than that, Mosh, I'm kind of with you. I'm kind of oblivious to the other hype surrounding it, and because of the lack of interest, I don't have any reason to chase it either. So
and it is a Super Bowl. I will watch it.
Oh, of course,
it's football,
but
it's not going to.
Of course. So getting back to Super Bowl 11. So the story of the Super Bowl for the Raiders in this game was the marvelous play of Fred Biletnikoff and Kenny Stabler offensively, and then defensively it was all about the Soul Patrol. It was all about the linebackers. It was all about those guys, the 4-4, the back 8 of this team that just absolutely dominated the day and took Fran Tarkington and Sammy White and all those guys pretty much out of the game.
The Raiders' rush, though formidable, posed no unusual problem for Tarkington. The real dangers lurked in the secondary.
Back to pass goes Tarkington. He's going down the middle, and White makes the catch. He is creamed, but holds on to the football, losing the helmet. Chin strap flying one way, helmet the other. Holy Toledo.
With 4 linebackers and 4 defensive backs, the Raiders surrounded and terrorized Tarkington's receivers. Oakland eliminated Tarkington's targets, narrowed his field of fire, and finally proved the undoing of everything he had hoped to accomplish.
Okay, so what would you give to have this starting defense? Matuzak, Rowe, Sistrunk, Villapiano, Monty Johnson, Willie Hall, Ten Hendricks, Skip Thomas, Willie Brown, George Atkinson, and Jack Tatum.
Oh my gosh, that gives me chills.
Look, are you serious?
That just gave me chills.
Are you serious?
That's bananas.
Against,
I know those. I already know that, and you just saying it, just like
against Tarkington and Ahmad Rashad.
Yeah, Sammy White. Good luck with that. Yeah.
Are you kidding me?
It's unbelievable. It's unbelievable. And this is why people get so wound up about the Raiders of the 70s not carrying more relevance in terms of like the Hall of Fame and in terms of the greatness is that, look, they had to play some of you look at the greatest teams of all time. So many of them were the undefeated Dolphins, the Steelers. You look at, even like the Colts, like you look at the teams that the Raiders had to compete with back then. it's sad that the Raiders' relevance and the amount of amazing players they had gets undersung, frankly, a lot of times. It's insane. So one of those guys, Omash, right here, the legendary Willie Brown, number 24, they gave Francis a fit all day long, chasing him around back there, forcing him into stupid passes. And the one that clinched the game for the Raiders, the play that clinched the game for the Raiders was Fran Tarkington's interception, picked off by Willie Brown, returned for a touchdown. Still to this day, one of the most iconic plays in not only Raider history, but in Super Bowl history.
There's another little quick flip. Look out.
There
he goes. Goodbye.
Grabbed off. Willie Brown on his way. Willie Brown, the veteran. He waited for that one. 14 years Willie's waited, and he scored a Super Bowl touchdown. Look at the Raiders come on the field. The whole squad is going over there.
Well, they love Willie. He's been there for a long time.
Look at him mobbing.
You're right. He sat back. They were waiting for that little deke out to the outside, trying to look at that guy, Willie Brown.
He's a defensive captain, all-pro many times. He has been better this year than he's been the last 2 or 3 years. And 14 years, watch him grab this one.
Well, it was almost picked off by Hendricks before he got out to Brown. He was trying to hit Semi White on a little quick square out. There's nothing to it. No foot race there. There's Fran made a little move after him.
Willie Brown has scored a 75-yard touchdown. Bud Grant doesn't change much his spread.
Go ahead. I know what you're going to say.
Ted Hendricks almost intercepted that, right?
Yeah.
Okay, if he didn't have 9 pounds of tape on his hands that he was using as a club.
If he could lift them up above his shoulders. Absolutely. And don't you love drunk-ass Dandy Don singing right there?
Turn up the lights, the party's over. That, and I like what he said about Francis. Oh, Fran Tarkington makes a little step towards him. Nah, never mind. Oh, my gosh.
So an amazing play there, and that was the live call on the television broadcast, but the best, of course, is Bill King calling it for Raiders Radio.
Line up now, and he looks and throws. Intercepted by the Oakland Raiders. Willie Brown at the 30, 40, 50. He's going all the way. Old man Willie. Touchdown Raiders.
Ah, that's the best. That gives me chills too, man. Old man Willie, touchdown Raiders. It's the best. So was this, Mosh, the greatest interception ever? I think yes, but I'm a little bit biased, right? I'm going to assume that you would agree, and so would everybody in the chat. But let's leave it to the NFL Network to debate it. They put it in their top 5 of greatest of all time, and here's what they had to say.
Old man Willie, and I think of a legend who'd already been in the NFL for 13 years. Getting that signature moment makes him an immortal.
It was a quick out to Sammy White. The ball was thrown too far to the inside. My guess is if he was here explaining it, he would tell you that he read the quarterback's drop and he knew what the throw was going to be.
This is how Old Man Willie explains it. He says, hey, I know what they're running here. Kind of cover me. The fact that he's like, yeah, okay, I got this. And just, I don't know, cover my guy in case he gets loose. I'm just going to go pick this off and win the Super Bowl, basically. It's cool theater.
Even cooler was the slow-motion shot by NFL film cinematographer Ernie Ernst.
The shot's so iconic. It's NFL films.
Absolutely the slowest slow motion you've ever seen in your life. And the emotion in his eyes and in his face watching it on NFL films was one of the greatest things I'll ever remember in NFL history.
After a decade of near misses, Brown's pick clinched the Raiders' first Super Bowl win.
That pick, I used to like to say, take your tape off. It was time to take your tape off after that pick.
You have the call of that game, Dandy Don Meredith. Turn out the lights, the party's over. Hearing Don Meredith just trample over the call of the play-by-play guy was just so hysterical to me.
He waited for that one. 15 years Willie's waited, and he scored a Super Bowl touchdown. Look at the Raiders come on the field. The whole squad is going over there.
And when he made that play, it was like so perfect that he got his reward.
So that would be, in my opinion, the greatest interception ever.
Pretty good, Mosh.
Yeah.
Pretty good. Greatest interception ever. So you heard there, of course, the legendary Phil Villapiano, right up here over my other shoulder here, the legendary Phil Villapiano, number 41 linebacker for the Oakland Raiders, talking about that's time to take your tape off.
Yep.
I love that. That's
Yep.
time to take your tape off. So Phil, in the footage of NFL films after that play, Phil did. He took his tape off, and he famously called his wife over to the sideline for a victory kiss, and then the celebration then ensued for the Raiders, and here's what that sounded like.
Come here, give me a kiss. Come here. Get her over.
A Super Bowl victory for the Oakland Raiders. A victory won not only for this season, but for seasons past. A victory that set a magnificent crown on the Oakland Raiders' unrivaled 14-year reign as football's winningest team.
All right, football's winningest team, and of course, after the celebration, they continued the celebration on the field, Mosh, by picking up famous head coach of the Oakland Raiders,
future Hall of Fame coach.
Yeah, future Hall of Fame coach John Madden, and Madden was a big guy, Mosh.
Yeah, bigger than me,
bigger than you. Madden was 3 bills plus.
He was 3 bills. Yeah.
And now he's a tall guy. He's like 6'3", 6'4", something like that. So he's a tall guy, but he's a big man. So I know it's definitely Matuzak, and I'm trying to remember who the other players were that picked him up. But anyways, they picked Madden up, but they didn't keep him up though, did they, Mark?
Not the whole way.
John Madden's grin is from ear to ear. He looks like a slit watermelon.
That was the culmination of everything that he'd ever worked for.
John, how's it feel? Great. Waited a long time for it.
You know, that was the day. That was the biggest day of all of our lives.
John Madden goes on the shoulders of his players.
Then they scooped up Big John.
There was a cameraman on the ground, and he was taking the shot up, and he didn't move. And my guys were carrying me off, didn't see him, and they tripped.
It was like the building that wasn't built correctly. John started moving in one direction, and you ain't stopping 300 and some pounds.
And it was like the London Bridge is falling down.
You don't care. I mean, I don't care if I would have fell on my head. You're so happy that erases anything else. I never thought like, oh man, that's terrible. They carry me off the field, we'll all fall down. Don't even think about it.
Oh, that's hilarious.
Isn't it the best, man?
That is
You
so
don't
cool.
they don't care.
You don't care.
That's the thing that I loved about Madden, about that whole spirit of that team, is that, Madden famously said, don't worry about the horse being blind, just load the wagon. Like they just, like he said, it doesn't matter what you do, play like hell on Sunday, man. Like that's all that counts.
Yep.
That's all that counts. Play like hell on Sunday. And so he just didn't get caught up in the minutia of things or the optics of things, to use a corporate term now. He didn't worry he didn't care if it looked silly. He didn't care if they were looked at as vagabonds and roughnecks and misfits. They didn't care. They didn't care. All they cared about was the score.
Yep.
That's it. And also, like, I remember Al Davis famously saying that, he didn't care about first downs. He cared about touchdowns. Like, what's the score at the end of the game? That's all that matters.
It's funny because of course Al Davis and John Madden are both Hall of Famers, but on that team, Fred Biletnikoff, Willie Brown, Dave Casper, Ray Guy, Ten Hendricks, Art Shell, Ken Stabler, and Gene Upshaw.
Jeez. Unbelievable.
On one team.
Yeah, they didn't split them up.
On one team.
They didn't even split those guys up. It's crazy, Mosh. It's crazy. The amount of talent on the Raiders of the 70s is just insane. And it continued.
And it continued.
And it continues for the
Absolutely.
next, how many years is that? Rough math, 8 years.
So just a quick, so out of the 70s into the 80s,
okay.
We brought with us, of course, on to the next time we went to the Super Bowl. In that next game, starting for us, Cliff Branch, Art Shell, Gene Upshaw, Dave Dalby, and then on defense, Twos and Hendricks. But a couple things, just a couple little trivia things about that game. This was the first and only time that the national anthem, which again, that's relevant now.
Oh, yeah,
was
yeah.
the only time the national anthem was not sung before the Super Bowl.
Really?
Yep, they sung "America the Beautiful."
Wow. Okay. All
Vicky
right.
Carr sang it, and and that's really cool. And then just a weird testament to how things have changed. The Super Bowl halftime show that year was produced by Disney, and
oh my gosh,
and it was based on Disney's "It's a Small World."
Oh my gosh,
that would
Can you
be
imagine?
booed today.
Oh my god,
people would say,
I don't know. It might be better than Maroon 5.
Yeah, okay.
Dude, hey, real quick, I thought it was so funny. I saw somebody the other day on Twitter. They're like, Maroon 5, is that like the Jackson 5? So is it like Tito Maroon, Michael Maroon, Jermaine Maroon, like the Maroon 5? I was like, that's pretty funny.
That is so funny.
All right, Mosh, one last thing before we move on from Super Bowl 11. Let's go to the players one last time as they reflect back on the importance and significance of that win.
The elation is, we're champions of the world. And, I get goosebumps when I think it doesn't get any better than that. I mean, I don't care what the heck you do.
Just believe that was a great step for John Madden. It brought him out into the sunshine, into the light, as to who he was, that he was a great coach, not living in the shadow of Al Davis.
John was great to play for. John was like playing for a big brother. He knew he had a bunch of free-spirited guys that were all pretty talented football players, but also fun-loving guys off the field, and the way he handled it was just the best.
You have that stigma, can't win the big one, always there, bridesmaids, never the bride. All those things that, boom, one shot and they're all gone now. You can never say never anymore.
Winning a championship is what you play any sports for.
The greatest thing about that win is you have it for the rest of your life, and they can never say you can't do it.
It was a great feeling and something that you get to enjoy and relive and talk about the rest of your life.
Everyone said we couldn't win the big one, and we just went back and had the intestinal fortitude to keep coming, and we broke through and we won.
All right, so there was number one. So that was Super Bowl 11. Mosh, you got anything else on 11?
It was January 9th, 1977. Last thing I got, cost of a 30-second commercial.
Okay.
$125,000.
Oh my gosh. Isn't that crazy?
$125,000.
How many people that would view that? Is it on there?
They had a 73 market share and a Nielsen rating of 44.4.
So 44 million. Is that
they're saying 62 million viewers.
62 million viewers for 100K.
I think it was 62.
Oh my God.
Either way.
We could almost afforded that. For Raiders Fan Radio.
Yeah.
That's awesome. Well, good stuff there. Well, I hope you guys enjoyed that little trip down memory lane for Super Bowl number 15. Well, but we're not done. That's only part one. Part one of the trilogy. So part two of the trilogy, Mosh, starts on December 28th, 1980. The Raiders went through a handful of changes, but not wholesale changes. Of course, Madden retired and vacated the head coaching spot, replaced by famously by Tom Flores. Kenny Stabler had moved on and joined the Houston Oilers. There were definitely some significant moves. Phil Villapiano went to Buffalo. Definitely some players had moved around, but a lot of the core of the team was there, and of course Al Davis is still there. And so the mystique remains. Everything about the Raiders in terms of their approach certainly didn't change one bit, and really. They took the core components of that 70s defense, and if you can believe, they actually built on it. And so that team added some phenomenal players, Rod Martin and whatnot, who we've already brought up earlier. But here's a fun story about this march to Super Bowl 15. So we play the Houston Oilers. And I say we because I was there as a fan, as part of it. So we play the Houston Oilers in the wild card game, December 28th, 1980. So let me paint the picture for you going back then. So in 78 and 79, the Steelers won back-to-back championships, okay? and they went to the Super Bowl by beating, in the AFC Championship game, the Houston Oilers. They beat them twice. So back-to-back years, okay? Head coach of the Houston Oilers back then was Bum Phillips. Bum Phillips, right after losing to Pittsburgh the second time in his post-game interview, had this to say.
1 year ago, we knocked on the door. This year, we beat on the door. Next year, we're going to kick the son of a in.
All right, so pretty cool there. We got something going on in the chat there. I got a guy that we need to get rid of there, Mosh. Hang on, I'm going to derail the show here for just a second.
Okay.
Let me get.
So let me go. I'll go ahead. You take care of that. I'll talk about this. All right. So one of the things that was pretty cool, we brought. Okay. So the next time we played in the Super Bowl, January 25th, 1981. Of course, our offense was led by Jim Plunkett from San Jose, California, who actually played at James Lick High School. And, you know, he went to Stanford, and he had a, pretty good career, and we were really excited about him being a Raider. But look at some of the weapons that he had on the offense. Cliff Branch, Art Shell, Gene Upshaw, Dave Dalby, and Mark Van Eegen. Okay, so it wasn't like he was starting with nothing. Those are just the guys who played in the last Super Bowl that we won. So, it was kind of nice to have that he could start with some good stuff, It wasn't like he was starting from scratch.
Absolutely. Appreciate you jumping in there and doing that, and thank you all there in the chat. Sorry about that. We had our first major league troll getting all racist and stuff in there. That was weird.
No, I didn't see it.
Yes, we had to get rid of that. And Ron, I made you a moderator, so if somebody else pipes up like that, then please feel free to do whatever you need to do there.
I totally missed it.
We trust you to do the right thing there for us, Ron. So sorry about that, guys. Okay. All right, so thank you, Mosh. In terms of the players that carried over, so I mentioned how the Raiders played those Oilers as fresh off of Bum Phillips saying that they were knocked on the door one year, they beat on the door the next year, and then the third year they were going to kick the SOB in. Well, my Uncle Murph famously said, because they played the Raiders and not the Steelers, I guess they kicked in the wrong effing door. So yes, they did. They kicked in the wrong door, and the Raiders beat those Oilers 27-7 there in the wild card round. So we were the first team to ever make a run and win the Super Bowl that year as a wild card. And so we beat the Oilers, then beat the Browns. That's the famous Cardiac Kids game, the famous Red Right 88 game. And then we go on to face the Eagles in the playoffs. So let's go ahead and check back in with Harry Callis and NFL Films and hear what that season was like from the AFC Championship game on.
All right, we got what we wanted. We want to kick off, get them inside the 20, defense. Our first shot out of the barrel. This is where we set the tempo.
From San Diego's Jack Murphy Stadium, it's the American Football Conference Championship game between the Oakland Raiders and the San Diego Chargers. The winner to advance to New Orleans in Super Bowl 15 in 2 weeks.
San Diego showed why they had reigned as the NFL's masters of the air. But the Raiders' mastery on this Sunday ended that reign. A 34-27 defeat sent the San Diego Chargers' vision of a Super Bowl plummeting to earth.
They could only watch those glowing hopes dwindle away as now the darkness closes over San Diego Jack Murphy Stadium. Darkness that symbolizes the end of the Charger dream.
For the Raiders, the dream lived on.
The jubilation begins. The Raiders are bound for the Super Bowl for the third time. climaxing one of the great stories in football in recent years, the total resurgence of the silver and black. New Orleans, here come the Raiders.
All right. So awesome stuff there. So first off, yes. So the Raiders then are getting ready to march into New Orleans, and we're going to have an even longer version of what that Super Bowl 80 looks like. And thank you to Ron. Appreciate you handling business in there. And yes, you are now the Mater Raider. That is amazing. For those of you that are listening on the podcast, I may even just cut this part of the podcast because it won't be relevant to anybody listening to the audio version. You rock, dude. That is so dang funny, man. That's the best. That's the best. The Mater Raider, Mosh.
Yeah, I love it. That's hilarious.
That's too cool.
Too funny.
All right, Mosh. So let's go ahead. Let's go check in with. Now we'll check in with the NFL 80 portrait. Sorry, I got a little verklempt there. I got a little off my game there. But now we'll be good to go. So let's pick it back up and let's listen to the Super Bowl and NFL 80.
January the 25th, 1981. Super Bowl 15. And a dream come true for both the Philadelphia Eagles and the Oakland Raiders.
Super Sunday, what a day. I can't believe it. I can't believe it. It's like a dream come true. It's unbelievable. Yes, and we're going to win. We are going to win, no question.
However, the dream soon faded for Dick Vermeil's Eagles.
All right, double, base pass 46-47, check with me.
Play fake. Back to Jaworski with time to throw.
He's got a bag.
Drills one. Intercepted. Rob Martin.
Oh, run. No. Throw it right to him.
The first of a Super Bowl record 3 interceptions by linebacker Rod Martin set the stage for the NFL Comeback Player of the Year, Jim Plunkett, who orchestrated a brilliant Oakland offensive performance. Tom Flory's Raiders did not hammer the Eagles into submission. They did it with finesse and flair.
Steps up. Can't find anybody yet. Takes off running to the left. Rolls on the move. And it's caught by King at the 40. King picks over the 50. King all the way. Number 3. To the 20. To the 10. To the 5. Touchdown Raiders.
This was the same style that brought the Raiders to this Super Sunday, and Philadelphia could do nothing to prevent it.
Philadelphia's defense may be a little frustrated. Maybe trying to shift to another gear that isn't there.
The Raiders seemed innovative, while the Eagles appeared predictable. The inevitable result was a classic mismatch. All phases of the Oakland attack were programmed to deliver the killing blow. Oakland demonstrated that it is not solely a team skill, but also its poise that decides the outcome in championship games.
Silver and black football is king of the hill in the National Football League.
Oakland's 27-10 victory over the Philadelphia Eagles was a storybook ending for a remarkable football season and a fitting conclusion to a thrilling year. NFL 80.
Good stuff. Harry Callis,
cool,
man. Isn't that legit? Yeah,
and he did a good job. Harry Callis did a great job, man.
Taking over for, not taking over for John Facenda, but for doing that in place of John Facenda.
Yeah.
We're going to talk a lot about John here in a minute, but for those of you that don't know, John Facenda, legendary voice of NFL films, his last ever NFL films was the Raiders' Black Sunday, which is coming up here in the next Super Bowl that we talk about.
So you know what's really cool about this one?
What's that?
Our own Watts Raider was born on this day.
Oh, no way.
Yeah.
Happy
January
birthday.
25th, 1981.
Oh, that is so cool, man.
That is so amazing.
That is very cool.
The man was born.
on the actual day and year.
Day and the year.
That is super cool.
Yeah. How awesome is that?
That is very cool. Well, happy birthday, Watts Raider. That is very cool.
Some other little, trivia stuff.
Yeah, give us some fun stuff.
So we all know Jim Plunkett, of course, earned MVP that year. He got MVP honors for the Super Bowl. I mean, that was crazy. He was the second Heisman Trophy winner to be named Super Bowl MVP behind Roger Staubach. You know, it's okay that he was a Cowboy. There's taking nothing away from Roger Staubach. You know, had that illustrious career with Navy, and then went on to, to play for the Cowboys. But the coolest thing about this, the Raiders became the first team in NFL history to get to the Super Bowl championship by going the wild card route.
Man. Yeah. And the wild card seeding was different back then than it used to be, because back then there was only 3 divisions. So then the 2 wild card teams played each other. So the Raiders were a 5th seed and had to play the other wild card team, which was the Houston Oilers. So that was pretty interesting, the way that it all kind of unfolded for the Raiders in that season. So good stuff there.
Yeah. And my guy Rod Martin got his 3rd interception. There's 3 interceptions. So there was there was just some great stuff.
Great stuff. So leading into the game, Mosh, I think this was also one of the first times, I don't know if it's there in our list or not, but this was one of the first times that teams had replayed a regular season matchup and the Raiders lost in the regular season.
Right.
Played the Eagles in the regular season, lost, and then we beat them. Well, knowing that they played each other earlier in the year, there is some amazing sound bites that came out of their first matchup. You probably don't remember, but there was early on when you first started joining me on the show full time, I was making reference to some sound bites that John Matuzak had in an interview about the way people smelled. Do you remember that?
Yes,
and I could not find it. In going through all this footage of these DVDs and stuff that I bought, I freaking found it.
No way.
Because he's talking about it was
a joke kind of a thing, right? He was
total joke.
He was slamming somebody for smelling like English leather or something.
Exactly. Yeah. So what this is that this is before the Super Bowl, but after. So this is like leading up, like Super Bowl week, leading up to the game, and they were asking him about what he thought about the fact that he's going to be in a rematch against the Eagles.
Right.
Okay.
Right.
So here's what he had to say.
It was here, in one of the season's most physical encounters, the initial battle lines were drawn for Super Bowl 15.
Well, I learned that from getting close to Jaworski and knocking him down a couple times, that he wears English leather. Jerry Sizemore wears Aramis. And that guy, Pete Perot, that second-year guy from Southwest Louisiana, he doesn't wear any cologne. He doesn't even use deodorant, I don't think.
Super Bowl 15 featured the most striking contrast in opponents since Darth Vader first crossed lasers with Luke Skywalker.
I love that, man. So not only you get twos in there cracking on the freaking lineman, but you get the Star Wars reference that a stranger matchup since Luke Skywalker and Darth Vader. So
that's so. I think you read that. I think you read that transcript.
Yeah,
but I don't think we actually heard it because we couldn't find it. But now I'm so glad you got.
Isn't that funny?
I'd love to hear that just for Q Dog. I'd love to hear that on tailgating too much.
Oh, that okay, fair enough. That's one to hit with it for sure. I love. He's just so chill. He's like, he doesn't wear any cologne or any deodorant. Yeah, that's funny. So all right, so good stuff. So let's hear. Let's go to the legendary John Facenda as he introduces us to Super Bowl 15.
January the 25th, 1981. America welcomes home 52 of its bravest amid the color and excitement of Super Bowl 15. Confident champions of the American Football Conference, the Oakland Raiders danced into this prestigious ball wearing glass slippers. If ever there was a Cinderella champion, it was these men in silver and black. Their quarterback, Jim Plunkett, had salvaged a wrecked career to become the NFL's comeback player of the year. And in only his second season, head coach Tom Flores directed a team with 14 new players through the wild card playoffs and into the Super Bowl. Shrewdly built by owner Al Davis, Oakland reflected the cool professional attitude of a team accustomed to meaningful games.
All right, there we go. Good stuff. So good to hear John Facenda, of course, introduce us to the game and talk about the significance of it. And then, so of course the game went on, and we won't give you a play-by-play breakdown of kind of everything, how everything it went. But, the Raiders were clearly dominant on defense with Rod Martin with the 3 interceptions, which we're going to get to that in a second. But pretty much as the game went on, the Eagles made a little bit of a push in the fourth quarter, but for the most part, man, this game was just straight up dominated by the Raiders. And
their little bit of a push was only one score. Okay,
I know.
They
I
scored one touchdown in the fourth quarter, but having trailed with only scoring 3 points up to that point. Okay, so they made a little bit of a push.
So it was what, 24-3?
It was, at that point, it was 24-3.
24-3. All right, so pretty much we just dominated them all.
Yeah. Oh, you were being really nice just now.
I was being really nice.
The fourth quarter, the legs of Wilbert Montgomery and the arm of Ron Jaworski retrieved some of Philadelphia's dignity.
Let's go!
But midnight had come and gone, and the Cinderella Raiders were still dancing.
Let me say this real quick, because you're going to hear this brought up thematically through these last few clips. The name of this of the NFL Films story is the Cinderella Champions, because they were the first wild card. So the term Cinderella Champion, it's not a negative.
No,
it's the idea that they're kind of doing something more than what they should be, and that the clock could strike midnight and it could all evaporate at any time.
Hey, so quick question, we got that?
Yeah.
Did he write his own stuff?
Facenda?
Yeah.
No, I believe it mostly was Steve and Ed Sable.
No kidding.
Yeah, because Steve Sable's the one that wrote The Autumn Wind.
Okay.
So John Facenda narrates it, but in fact, I'm pretty sure Steve Sable was the genius behind the words, and then Facenda was the voice.
Wow.
Yeah. Isn't it great? It's just so good listening to all this stuff.
The Raiders right now are in a situation to close in very firmly on their second Super Bowl championship in 4 years.
Jim Plunkett's performance in this Super Bowl ball was the stuff fairy tales are made of.
See, that's brilliant.
Yeah.
10 years of disappointment were behind him, for at last this Cinderella was healthy, poised and surrounded by men whose abilities equaled his own. Jim Plunkett's 261 yards and 3 touchdown passes earned him Super Bowl XV's Most Valuable Player Award. Another Chris Barfield goal concluded the scoring as Oakland ended Philadelphia's dreams of a world championship.
Dick Vermeil must be feeling the sting of frustration right now.
Anyone who ever said, one game cannot tarnish a great season, never lost a Super Bowl.
Ooh. Boom. Facenda don't hold stuff back, too. That's the other thing about these guys on these NFL Films documentaries, man. They don't hold anything back, and if you fall short, they let you know. So the big performance of this game, as we mentioned earlier when we talked about the records, it was Rod Martin with the 3 interceptions, and so let's check in with NFL Films as we hear Rod get his third one.
A lot of credit. They beat our butts. Yep. Wasn't a fluke.
This tale was to have a storybook ending for the remarkable Raiders. A new Super Bowl record, achieved by perhaps the least known of all these Cinderella stars.
Back is Jaworski. Sets up really deep. Now comes up the middle. Picked off. Rod Martin, the third time in a row. And Rod Martin once again slams the door in the face of the man they call Jaws, a sort of fitting symbol. Silver and black football is king of the hill in the National Football League. Crescendo of Raider fans beginning to rise.
Oakland's victory created the sort of joyous reaction that comes with seeing something that suggests all things are possible. The Oakland Raiders, for 17 years, pro football's winningest organization, were once again the world champions of professional football.
All right, so once again, we are the champions of pro football. And Uncle Mosh, real quick before we get to the I want you to touch up on some of the significance of the win, but let's listen to Coach Flores as he comments on how significant it was. And this is many, many years later. This is probably within the last 5-10 years he did this interview.
My most satisfying accomplishment in pro football was my second year as head coach of the Raiders, when as a wild card team we won the Super Bowl. And that was, in my opinion, the best accomplishment that I ever had as a player, coach, or whatever, because of how we did it. We did it as a wild card, the tough way, playing in 39 below chill factor weather. I didn't have to play, but I had to coach. And I had so many clothes on that day, I don't think I could have even moved. If I'd fallen down, I probably wouldn't have been able to get back up. But we did win, and I look back on those days and that day as one of the great ones.
All right, Uncle Mosh, he looks back on it as one of the great ones. You got another tidbit there about what was so significant about this game?
Well, I mean, it was amazing. It was a fantastic game. I remember where I was at when I watched it. I was in between wives at the time, but it doesn't matter that. But, the Nielsen rating was the same. The market share was a 63. But what really jumps out is that was the start of the Super Bowl commercial push.
Oh,
and
okay.
That's what
that
was one of the things I remember. That at that point in 81 that's when people started really paying attention to the commercials. For instance, and I'll tell you why, because commercial slots went from $125,000 just 3 years before to $325,000 for a 30-second slot. So people started actually, I remember that, paying attention. There was a little bit of water cooler talk in addition to the next day.
Okay.
The little bit of water cooler talk about, hey, the commercials were great. I was living in Donkeytown at the time, so, a lot of people didn't want to talk to me anyway. But they would talk to me about the commercials.
Oh, okay.
So, yeah, that's my tidbit.
That's cool. So in terms of the team goes, so that was the first time that a team had represented represented themselves in the game in 3 different decades.
Right,
so,
right, yeah.
So
that
the
was
Raiders,
the other one, yeah.
Yeah, so the Raiders, of course, in 67 against the Packers, and then against the Vikings in 77, and then this one, and then in 1980. So becoming the first team to do that. All right, Uncle Mosh, let's listen to this is the first. So for the first Super Bowl win, there wasn't really a post-game interview. This was the first time that we get a post-game interview, and of course we get some of the legendary words of Al Davis. I do want to ask you though, Mosh, to help me set this up a little bit, because I was too young to really remember it. One of the big things around this game was at the Superdome, where it was played, there was a big yellow ribbon around the Superdome because the hostages, there was United States hostages taken then, and they were recently freed. And so, again, I'm a little too young to remember everything. So set that up, and then we're going to go to Al Davis,
and
because he references a bunch of that.
Iran, with the Shah being deposed and the Ayatollah Khomeini taking over, they had taken a bunch of hostages of ours and hostages. They had taken over our consulate there and held our people for almost a year. And it was right after the inauguration of the new president when they were finally let go. I think it was 444 total days, but that's what launched Ted Koppel's career on Nightline. Because after the local news at 11 o'clock, he would come on every night and he would say, Iran hostage crisis, day 102, day 103, and he every single night, and that after that ended, that launched his career into what he went on to but it was what everybody was talking about. So that yellow ribbon from that song, tie a yellow ribbon around the yellow tree,
right.
That was it was if you can remember, most of you are old enough to remember what 9/12 was like. The day after 9/11, with everybody being very patriotic, very American, and kind of putting our politics aside and coming together as a group, and that's what it was like for this Super Bowl. So that meant so much more to everybody as well. We didn't know what we were going to do. We didn't know if we were going to go to war in Iran. I mean, everybody was very patriotic. Everybody was like pro us. And
Okay.
I remember. I mean, there was some thought process about that. I went in the military in the late 70s, and we had some folks from other nations in my basic training class, and I remember our DI saying, there was a guy from the Middle East, he was Egyptian at the time, but our DI said, well, eventually we're going to go over there and kick your ass and take your gas. And I remember that. S.Q. Slavens was the guy's name, and I remember him saying that. And it was a little foreshadowing. But it was the Middle East. And the Middle East has been in turmoil for thousands and thousands and thousands of years. But that was the culmination of it, and it was just it was crazy.
Okay, all right. Well, so you're gonna. I asked Mosh, and thank you for that awesome setup of all that, because it's obviously a significant point in our country's history, and Al brings it all up. So that's why I wanted to have Mosh kind of set the table for us. So let's now go to post game and hear from Al.
Congratulations. Congratulations, Al. Outstanding. Commissioner Pete Rozelle, I know you've got a presentation to do.
Jesus, I wanted that. Al, the Raiders became, of course, the first wild card to win the Super Bowl. I think it's a tremendous compliment to the organization, because you had to win 4 postseason games. Today, of course, was the big one, the Super Bowl. I think it's a great credit to you for putting this team together. I think that Tom Flores clearly did one of the great coaching jobs in recent years, all season and particularly today. And it's a credit to some marvelous, dedicated athletes, especially Jim Plunkett and that offensive line today.
All right.
You've earned it. Congratulations.
Al,
thanks very much.
Al, you finally got the mic.
Thanks very much, Commissioner. When you look back at the years of glory of the Oakland Raiders, but this was our finest hour. This was the finest hour in the history of the Oakland Raiders. To Tom Flores, the coaches, and the great athletes, you were magnificent out there today. You really were. The years will go on. We owe a great tribute to all our alumni all over the country, the great fans. And we want to welcome back the hostages to the United States. And take pride and be proud. Your commitment to excellence and your will to win will endure forever. You were magnificent.
Al, congratulations. Is this one any sweeter than the one 4 years ago?
Well, this has been the sweetest because it's our finest hour. And I'm just so proud of everyone here. Just a great staff. Just great coaching.
I've got to ask you, can it be displayed as proudly in Oakland as Los Angeles?
Oh, I don't want to get into that, Brian. Now, I don't think that anyone should ever take away from the great game and the great achievement of our players.
Al, congratulations again.
Thank you very much. I wish Ed McGaw would here. He's coming down right now. He's my general partner and just a super guy, and we're all so proud of this great trophy once again. Hi, Captain Gene.
Thank you, Al. Commissioner?
All right, so there's Al. So, of course, he, one of his best speeches there, and I love the rousing round of applause that he gets from the players and from everybody that's in the room. He welcomes the hostages back, and then he also mentions a name that you're going to hear a couple of times tonight or this morning, and that is Ed McGaw. Now, I've heard him, and I've heard those speeches a million times. And I've always heard him refer to Ed. He refers to Ed once in this speech is coming down, and then he refers to Ed again after the 84 win, and because Ed had recently at that point passed away. So who Ed McGaw is, this is the kind of stuff I'm telling you, Raider Nation, you want to get in the weeds on stuff, we're going to arm you with some killer facts. Ed McGaw was one of the founding members of the Raiders. So back in 1960, when the Raiders were formed, Ed McGaw was a commercial real estate developer in the Bay Area in Oakland, and he, along with Al Davis and a handful of other partners, were the ownership group of the Raiders. That's why Al referred to him as the general partner. So back then it was known that Ed was a 37% owner and Al was 30%. when Ed passed away, a portion of that went over then to Al, and Al became the managing general partner. If you think back to when Al was alive, they never referred to him as the owner of the Raiders, the president of the Raiders.
Right.
He was always referred to as the managing general partner of the Raiders. Well, that's why, because of his relationship with this guy. Well, this guy's son ended up taking what was then left of his part of it, and Ed McGaw Jr. then maintained ownership, still partial ownership of the team, and he, Mosh, was a baseball player.
Yep.
He played for the Red Sox.
He played, he was a Boston Red Sox player. It was amazing. He was, he was old school. He got up to the majors at one point, got dropped back down, and played. He only played in 24 games before getting sent back down the minors. He never made it back up to the bigs, but he retired with a 157 batting average in only 51 career at bats. But yeah, he moved to Oakland, where they did a lot of land developing and general contracting in 1960. And it was his dad that secured the American League football franchise for the city of Oakland.
Isn't that
That's
crazy?
man?
Isn't that crazy? Yeah. So Ed McGaw. So definitely we owe a lot of the legacy of the Raiders from an ownership perspective. Of course, it's always tied to Al, but the McGaws are a big portion of what goes on there. So when you hear Al say Ed McGaw, that's the guy that he's talking about.
That's why we as Raiders like to play on baseball fields. That's right. You heard it. That's what our affinity is with tackling somebody on second base.
All right, Mosh, let's go. We got one more to hit. The what am I trying to say? The anchor of the trilogy, the final chapter of the trilogy, of course, is the Raiders' Super Bowl victory in Super Bowl 18. Now, this is after the Raiders have then moved to Los Angeles. So this is the first championship for the city of Los Angeles, or not. The Lakers won a bunch, but you guys know what I'm saying in terms of football. First championship for the city of Los Angeles, and so kind of the tail of the tape, man. So the Raiders. This wasn't a wild card. This wasn't a sneak in there. This wasn't a Cinderella story. This was a dominant performance. This was a dominant regular season performance, matched by 3 dominant performances in the postseason. We played the Steelers on January for New Year's Day, 1984, and whipped them 38-10. We then go and play the Seattle Seahawks and whip them 30-14, and then we go and whip the Washington Redskins in the game 38-9. Marcus Allen is your MVP of the game, and look, this was not a Cinderella, they shouldn't be there. Are they the best? No, they were the slam dunk best team in the regular season, best team in the postseason, and by far the best team in the Super Bowl. So let's go ahead and check in with the Raiders as Tom Flores tells them they're going to Tampa.
The Raiders destroyed the Pittsburgh Steelers 38-10, then struck 12 on the Cinderella season of the Seattle Seahawks with a 30-14 pounding in the AFC Championship game. Only the Redskins blocked the championship chase of these mighty Raiders.
You guys were magnificent. We played a great football game. We deserve to be the champs and represent this conference. We're going to Tampa, baby. We're going
All right, we're going to Tampa. So this game was played at what Chris Berman used to refer to as the Big Sombrero.
Yeah, right.
That was the stadium there in Tampa. And you got any fun tidbits for us on that before we jump into the game?
So there's some great stuff. Like, okay, so probably, I'd say arguably the best football name ever in the history of our sport. Bronco Nagurski. I love that game. Bronco Nagurski did the coin toss.
Nice.
That was amazing. Also, they claim that because this is the game where Apple did their first television commercial introducing the Macintosh computer, and they say that this is what ushered in the Super Bowl media advertising. I don't know. it was
very significant anyways,
It
right?
was very significant, and it was only a few $1,000s. It was $364,000 for 30 seconds. The last time that the Raiders played, it was $324,000. So it wasn't that much more. The economy hadn't. But what we have here is a failure to communicate. What we have here. I mean, listen to our starting defense, okay?
Oh, my gosh. This is amazing.
This is our starting defense. And I went back and checked. We had 7 of the 11 coming back from the last Super Bowl.
Oh, okay.
victory.
All right.
Howie Long, Reggie Kinlaw, Lyle Alzado, Ted Hendricks, Matt Millen, Bob Nelson, Rod Martin, Lester Hayes, Mike Haynes, Mike Davis, and Van McElroy.
Oh, my
That's
gosh.
our starting defense.
That's brutal. That is brutal.
Isn't that
Mosh.
crazy?
It's awesome.
And not to mention Cliff Branch, Dave Dalby, Mickey Marvin, Henry Lawrence, Plunkett, and Kenny King, who all started in the last Super Bowl. So we, out of 22 guys, we had 14
Wow.
that had already had Super Bowl experience.
Wow, that's cool.
Nuts.
That is cool. That is super cool. And those corners, man. It's Hayes and Haynes.
Oh, come on.
Like that's probably the best. I don't want to say the best secondary, but that's probably the best 1-2 punch at corner, maybe in the history of the league. I mean, I don't know. I mean, I'm trying to think of some other examples off the top of my head. I mean, maybe the Legion of Boom once part of that discussion. I mean, but when you talk about who the Steelers have, they have Mel Blount, who was on the other side.
Yeah.
But I mean, Hayes and Haynes, man, like you got literally Hall of Famers right there. And now, of course, Lester Hayes, another one, a glaring omission from the Super Bowl. But Mike Haynes is in, and but those two guys, man, just absolute studs. So I mean, I'm with you. I mean, this team was practically an all-star team. When you think about Alzado, and you think about and Matt Millen, and you think about
100%.
This was Howie's rookie year. Oh, I always want to say I don't think it was. I think it was his second year because his rookie year was still in Oakland, so his second year. So yeah, just an amazing amount of talent on this football team. All right, let's listen. I'm going to skip the NFL 83 in the interest of time, which is the one that kind of gives the whole overview, and that's only because there is so many great NFL films tidbits that I want us to get to, because this is, and I've had it playing. I'll flash over there right now. It's playing over Uncle Mosh's shoulder right now, and we've had it playing this entire episode. Oh, there you go. This is known as Black Sunday. This is the best NFL Films presentation you'll ever see as a Raider fan. It is John Facenda's swan song. It is his final installment as a member of NFL Films. And I'm going to play a lot of audio from it, but the audio does not do it justice. When you watch it and you see the footage, you see the video, you see all of the stuff that's getting played on there, coupled with the music and the voiceovers and everything, it really draws an amazing picture, a very dramatic picture of the Raiders' victory. So listen to this stuff. I hope you do enjoy it, but do yourself a favor, go back and watch it, because it resonates that much more powerfully. But anyways, let's check in with the first one, and let's hear Al Davis introduce us.
2 years ago, when we came to Los Angeles, I really believed that the greatness of the Raiders would be in its future. And with all the great teams we've had, I think today that this organization, this team, this coaching staff dominated so decisively that two things must be said. Not only, in my opinion, are you the greatest Raider team of all time, I think you rank with the great teams of all time that have ever played any professional sport.
Commitment to excellence, the motto of the Raiders. And once again, Coach Tom Flores fulfilled that commitment in a Super Bowl.
The final score, Los Angeles 38, Washington Redskins 9. They have turned back the team that many just a few weeks ago were trying to rank with the greatest of all time. They have turned them back in the most shattering fashion imaginable.
Oh my gosh, that music right there, just even that alone, man, like it reminds me of like Terminator, of like, just that dun, 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 you know what I mean? It's so good. It's so good. So just to clarify real quick, I hate looking stuff up during the show because I like, I try to know this stuff coming in. But anyways, Howie's rookie year was 1981. So so this would have been his third year. So just to clarify there. But yeah, some amazing work from John Facenda and NFL Films. And after the intro, the first thing he has to tell us about is the muscle and the mystique, Mosh, of the Oakland Raiders.
NFL has had
the Los Angeles Raiders.
Oh.
I got to catch myself there.
The NFL has had its great teams. They have come from Green Bay, Dallas, Miami, and Pittsburgh. But perhaps none has matched the muscle and mystique of the Raiders.
All right, the muscle and mystique of the Raiders, Mosh. And, so many dramatic terms and words and phrases used in this thing. And it goes on through the whole thing. And I've just highlighted a few of my favorite ones. Go ahead. You got something?
No.
Okay.
Alex Rodriguez says, hey, don't forget to look at us, Murph and Mosh.
Oh, okay. What's up, guys?
Hey, fellas. How's
there you
it
go.
going?
Thank you for joining us.
Yeah.
All right, so
they caught me coming back after a quick break.
Oh, yeah.
That's why the camera was shaking. I was running to my chair.
That's the first time I've seen you sprint in a while, man.
Oh, I don't sprint.
No, you don't sprint. Okay, let's check in with John as he talks about the true test of men.
When history, the harshest of judges, comes to a decision on Al Davis's Raiders, it will look to Super Bowl 18 for guidance. Like all athletic contests, Super Bowl 18 was not only a game, but a true test of men. And right from the start, the Raiders proved they had the best men.
From the start, the Raiders proved they had the best men. It's like, I love the levels that they take this stuff. Like, it's not even a football game anymore. Like, we're defending our integrity as human beings. You know what I mean? Like, it's just crazy the level that John Facenda takes this stuff. And again, if you got to see the pictures to go along with it, it's just amazing. Well, Mosh, next to Willie Brown's 74-yard interception, probably 75-yard interception, the most electrifying play in Raiders Super Bowl history is probably Marcus Allen's run. Again, we're not going to detail every play that went on during these games, and especially this one, because we just freaking dominated from the get-go, from Jack Squirick's interception to the block punt that was recovered for a touchdown. Like, there was, we literally scored in all three phases, but the most electric play in this game, and maybe Raider history, maybe even Super Bowl history. I mean, this is up there with the David Tyree pinning the ball against his head.
Yep.
Like, you could think of a lot of different ones. Well, Marcus Allen, according to John Facenda, running with the night is way up there. This is so good.
As Washington's hopes faded into the dying daylight, on came Marcus Allen, running with the night.
Plunkett giving to Allen, sending him wide left. He has to reverse his field, but he gets away for a moment. Comes back up the middle of the 30, 25, 40. Waits past 2 minutes to 50. Down to the 40. Picking up a blocker. To the 20. To the 10. To the 5. Touchdown Raiders! Holy Toledo! 7-4. The Raiders are mobbing Marcus Allen, who has just stood a crowd of 72,000 on his collective ear.
Stood 72,000 on its collective ear, Mosh.
That's nuts.
So good. It's so good. So for those of you that aren't familiar with the play, Marcus Allen starts in one direction. The defense collapses down on that side. He does a complete 360. He completely reverses direction. Well, not 360, but like 320 maybe. Like
yeah.
You know what I mean? So he turns all the way around and then takes off up the middle of the field and then turns on the jets, and he's gone.
There was no catching
and there ain't no catching Marcus, man. It's so good. So as I mentioned, the Raiders, they just throttled the Redskins. They just beat them in all phases. They beat them physically. They beat them mentally. And no one had done that to the Redskins at all that year. The Redskins were the defending champions.
They're 14-2.
They were 14-2. Like, no one pushed them around the way that the Raiders did. No one bullied them the way that the Raiders did. And John Facenda details that in Black Sunday.
Well, the Raiders said they were going to do it. By golly, so far they are doing it, dominating this Washington Redskin team.
Not many teams have done that to the Redskins.
No team has done that to the Redskins this year.
Sad ass music. I love that, man. It's just like I know, right? And I'm looking. I have the. I don't know if you guys can see it or not. You probably can't in the shot. Maybe in the fan cave shot here. I don't know. You can't see it there either. But anyways, I have a picture up there of Marcus Allen running and a disheveled Joe Theismann, beat up, shoulder pad hanging out, all sullen, walking off with the freaking Lombardi trophy there that Marcus is running to. It's a great picture. But like it's just so funny to way that they portray the beatdown that we give them, and again, calling into question their character as human beings and as men, because according to John Facenda, they've lost their honor. Forget losing a football game. They lost their honor.
For the Redskins, this was a defeat the dimensions of which they had never experienced. A rout from which no honor could be salvaged.
This is the best.
At the heart of this darkness was the Raider defense. They had stripped the Redskins of their most trusted weapons and sacked Joe Theismann 6 times. Nothing on earth that blocked or tackled or passed or ran could have stopped the Raiders on Black Sunday.
My favorite line ever uttered by Facenda, and I've said numerous times.
Yeah.
All great. Nothing on earth that blocked or tackled or passed nor ran could have stopped the Raiders on Black Sunday. Like that's like it's poetry, man. It's so good. It's so good.
That's crazy.
It's
I
so
love
good.
it. It's so funny that all this stuff is still relevant. We those of us that have lived through most of the Super Bowls, we remember when Super Bowls weren't good games. Most of them were routes.
For a long time,
the longest time they were routes. And for this was at the highlight of the routing of the rowdiest. So that was awesome.
Yeah, 38-9, man. I mean, that's a straight up beatdown. So here's how the Raiders closed it out. Here's what it sounds like according to the last one we have for you from Black Sunday from NFL Films. And it's the post-game celebration. And, for those that haven't seen it, if I could just describe the setting a little bit, it's Rod Martin, it's Lyle Alzado. They really focus in on the faces of the players, and really, you see Todd Christensen and Matt Millen, and the emotion that came out of the players during this time, during this celebration. So the music is bombastic. It sounds like the choirs and it's this really dramatic tone.
Yeah.
But when you see the pictures that are associated with it, it makes perfect sense.
And the Raiders take it away. Then the Raiders celebration will start.
In Super Bowl 18, the Raiders again scaled the heights of football greatness and stood alone on the summit. A team of young men filled with promise and old veterans filled with pride. The 1983 Raiders are an honor to the team's glorious past and the world champions of pro football's present.
Okay, so I'm laughing because in our prep before the show a couple of hours ago, you played that for me, and I'm like, why do you have the Mormon Tabernacle Choir going at it full bore in the background? Yeah. And then you played me the video, and I'm like, oh, dude, it couldn't have been any better. Man, that was angelic, man. That was amazing. For those of you that have access to the YouTube, call that up, watch it. It will give you chills. It's going to be so much better than this evening's game. You know?
Yeah, it really is. You know, it's one of those. I mean, I've seen Black Sunday, I don't know, 100 times. I mean, I've seen it as much as I've seen Star Wars or any, you know what I mean? Like, probably more, frankly, than I've seen any of my favorite movies or anything else. And it still, man, gives me chills. And it's still like, it's just freaking, it's a masterpiece. Now, look, I know I'm biased. I get it. But I mean, I don't think I'm overselling it by saying in terms of the context of a sports documentary or video, right? It's a freaking masterpiece.
Absolutely, 100%.
It's absolutely amazingly well done. So anyway, so definitely check out Black Sunday and celebrate John Facenda and the Raiders, as I know you will. So the last thing that we have for you before we check out of here on this game, in terms of audio cues, we're gonna go to Al Davis post game. You picture the craziness of a post game scene, of a post game interview. It's Tom Flores, it's Al Davis, it's Brent Musburger, it's Pete Rozelle, and all the players and media and everything. It's just a chaotic scene, and this might be one of Al Davis's best, man.
Absolutely,
this might be his best speech ever.
Final score: the Raiders.
I forgot to set up. This is first Madden and Summerall on the television broadcast, then leading us in to the post game scene.
Final score: the Raiders 38 and the Washington Redskins 9, and a totally dominating Raider team. It'd be lying if you didn't say you were surprised. I know that.
Well, they did everything they had to, and
did.
Of course, it was a long day for the Redskins.
Redskins, both with the Raiders, had a spectacular year, but certainly there can be no argument now from anybody about who's the best team in pro football. It's the Los Angeles Raiders. Final score again, 38-9. Super Bowl 18 will continue after this word from your local station.
We are inside the locker room, and Al Davis embracing Tom Flores. This is the first time they have met since the victory. Al, congratulations. Let us start out with the trophy presentation for Tom Flores and Al Davis. And here's the commissioner, Pete Rozelle. Pete?
Well, the Raiders, I think everyone would say, beat a fine football team today. The Redskins had won 31 of the last 34 games. And I think that it was clearly a very dominant win. You had scoring by your offense, by your defense, and by your special teams. And I think that while it's hard to mention just one, I'd be remiss if I didn't mention the great job that Marcus Allen did in becoming the most valuable player of the game. And Tom, I think you certainly established yourself as one of the great coaches in the league.
Thank you.
With your consistent record of winning over the years, tremendous. And now, you're be congratulated for putting this cast together. You and the Raider management, you put together a great football team, and they sure showed it today. Congratulations.
Just win, baby.
He could have stopped right there. And
Yeah,
it would have been enough.
I just want to say, 2 years ago, when we came to Los Angeles, I really believed that the greatness of the Raiders would be in its future. And with all the great teams we've had, I think today that this organization, this team, this coaching staff dominated so decisively that two things must be said. Not only, in my opinion, are you the greatest Raider team of all time, I think you rank with the great teams of all time that have ever played any professional sport. Tom Flores isn't just a great coach in our league, with all due respect to the commissioner. He's one of the great coaches of all time. And the coaching staff, the organization, and I want to say one thing to the fans and the great players who wore the silver and the black in the past all over the country. And I want to pay tribute to my partner, Ed McGaw, who died this winter. Again, you were magnificent. You dominated. And I love all of you, and you know that. And thanks a lot.
Al Al, thank you very much. Excellent job. Al, let me ask you something. With all the distractions that you have off the field, how are you able to keep focused on winning football games as you do and do throughout the years?
When you have great coaches, then after you have great coaches, you get great players. You have a great organization, and you tell them one thing: just win.
That's it, Mosh. That's it. Just win. So there it is. That close out the Raiders' Super Bowl victory in Super Bowl number 18 there against the Washington Redskins, 38-9. Mosh, you got any other tidbits on that one, or is that pretty much it?
We've hit it all, man.
We've hit it all. So so thank you to those of you that have joined us live in the chat. Let me hit the chat. It's been a little bit since I did it, and thanks to the Mater Raider, of course, to Ron for helping out in there. I guess that's one of the things that happens. With the bigger you get, the more chances you have of somebody doing something goofy.
And that's why you bring people like Ron in.
That's why
that's why he's the Mater Raider, and we'll do a video tribute to that. Next time.
Absolutely. So thank you to the Materator, Ron, for running the chat in there, and thank you to all of you that join us in there. So White Stallion, Raider Homer, Bobby Wasabi, Carl Rogers, Running Bear, Joseph Morales, I Like It Spooky, Alex Rodriguez, Watts Raider, Ronan. We've had a whole bunch of people in there this afternoon, and so appreciate each and every one of you for joining us on this Super Bowl Silver and Black reflection. Here it is. We've gone down memory lane for the Raiders' 3 Super Bowl victories in Super Bowl 11, 15, and of course 18. So Mosh, I think that's all we got. You'll find us anywhere you can find a podcast. If you liked what you heard tonight here on Raiders Fan Radio, you can find us on any podcast service, which can be Apple, Google, Stitcher, whatever it is. Just search for Murph's Fan Cave. That's MURFS Fan Cave. You can find us on Apple Podcasts. Or I said Apple Podcasts. You can also find us, if you're an Android user, you can find us via app. You can go to the Google Play Store and search for Murph's Fan Cave, the app. That's MURFS Fan Cave. And then on the YouTubes, which is youtube.com/Murph's Fan Cave, you can like and subscribe us there and never miss a live stream. All right, I think
that was a lot.
That was a lot. So I think that's all the words I got. I'm ready to watch the Super Bowl tonight. Although I don't have a rooting interest, I'll still enjoy the game. Hope you all do as well, and hope we've armed you with a little bit of additional knowledge that maybe you didn't have before, so you can go in there and represent Raider Nation proudly, as I know you will, via your attire, so you can represent them with your knowledge base as well. So
yeah, absolutely. And once again, we appreciate Ron jumping up and taking your new position seriously.
Yeah, that's cool.
We know that 24 Karat Kev, the cool ass Raider fan, is out there. I had to throw that out there.
Yeah.
So for Mosh and Murph on this Raiders Fan Radio Super Sunday Super Bowl Super Show with your super stupids, thanks for listening today. You got your old Uncle Mosh here, and you've been listening to Raiders Fan Radio, where we've taken a lighter side journey into the dark side. Don't forget, what happens in Vegas started in Oakland.
And that guy, Pete Perot, that second-year guy from Southwest Louisiana, he doesn't wear any cologne. He doesn't even use deodorant, I don't think.